Well, surprise move this morning, wasn't it? Because Restore Britain's Rupert Lowe offered Reform UK an olive branch, or what some people would call an olive branch, to work together to build a future patriotic government.
That is why today I'm reaching out to put personalities and our past disagreements aside for the good of the country.
Well, Mr Lowe said he would only agree to a pact if Nigel Farage agreed to 5 policies, including mass deportations, a ban on the burqa and a referendum on the death penalty. He also said that...
Well, there you go. This is GB News Originals. I'm Emily Carver. Please do give this video a like and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. And do leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Do you think
future, I think, current Tory party ministers or former ministers would not be allowed to serve in a future government? Reform's Andrew Rosendale spoke to GB News earlier today.
Rupert was elected as a Reform UK MP under Nigel's leadership, so clearly there's common ground on lots of issues.
Well, Nigel Farage has responded tonight. He said this: "To deliver change, I understand Reform UK will need the support of people from other parties, as well as millions who have never voted before. That is a broad coalition I am building." So, should Reform be more open to uniting the right and accepting, perhaps, Restore's offer? Well, I'm now joined by commentator and YouTube sensation Bruce Unfiltered, and another sensation, political commentator Lee Harris. Good evening, gentlemen. It's a pleasure to have you both on at the same time. Look, Bruce, I'll start with you. What do you think of this offer from Rupert Lowe to Nigel Farage, or from Restore Britain to Reform UK?
I think, Alex, I made my points very clear on social media earlier today that it felt to me a little bit like very close.
The patriotic right is tearing itself apart in public. A private message, a broken promise of a phone call, and a feud between Nigel Farage and Rupert Lowe that just spilled out at a national press conference for the whole country to watch. Tonight, we go underneath the headlines and find out who's telling the truth. Good evening, and welcome back to Britain Underneath, the channel that doesn't do spin, doesn't do soundbites, and definitely doesn't look away when things get uncomfortable. If this is your first time here, you've picked a good night to join us, because what's unfolding on the British right now is about as messy as politics gets. Before we go any further, do one thing for me. Hit that subscribe button. This channel exists because people like you want the real story, not the polished version. So subscribe now, ring that bell, and let's dive straight into the middle of this row.
Here's where it starts. Rupert Lowe, leader of Restore Britain, posted a video this week reaching out to his old party, Reform UK, and to the man who removed him from it, Nigel Farage. His message was blunt. He said millions of people look at the patriotic right and see nothing but division, and he argued there was enough common ground between the two movements to work together, rather than let that division hand victory to the left. That's the olive branch. Now here's the thorn. According to Lowe, at a national press conference, Farage told the room that he'd said to Lowe the day before, quote, "Shall we have a call?" Lowe says that simply isn't true. What actually happened, by his account, is that Farage sent him a short message the day before, saying he'd call later.
Lowe says that call never came. And to make things worse, senior figures inside Reform reportedly went public almost immediately afterward to dismiss his peace offer entirely. Take a breath here, because this next part is where it gets personal. Lowe didn't hide his feelings about even considering cooperation with people he blames for previous legal trouble in his life, including what he describes as an armed police raid on his own home. He said working with them wasn't something he particularly wanted to do, but that he was still willing to do it for the sake of the country. He then laid out 5 conditions for any cooperation: tougher removals and enforcement around illegal immigration, a sharper focus on what he calls Britain's demographic and cultural direction, alongside full implementation of the recommendations from the grooming gang inquiry.
What is your reaction to a potential Reform UK, Restore Britain pact, this deal to unite the right? That would be an extinction-level event for the Tories, wouldn't it?
No, I don't think so. Obviously, Rupert Lowe and Nigel Farage had a massive falling out because Mr. Farage has quite a fragile ego and didn't like the fact that Rupert Lowe was getting attention a year or two ago. So I think they're fighting like rats in a sack. There's only one credible party on the right that actually has policies that will work, that thinks things through in detail, and that's the Conservative Party. I mentioned a minute ago our plan to deport all illegal immigrants within a week of arrival. A similar approach would apply to foreign criminals as well. We're the only party with credible policies that have been properly thought out. It's very easy for Reform to come up with these slogans, but they're not properly thought out, like this announcement today. It's just done in a panic on the back of a fag packet. It hasn't been properly thought out. When it comes to the economy, cutting welfare and cutting taxes, we Conservatives have a properly thought out plan to cut welfare and cut taxes and ease the cost of living crisis. We've done the proper thinking. Mel Stride and Helen Whately and our leader Kemi Badenoch have done the proper thinking on that. We're the only party on the right to have done the proper thinking and have a credible plan. So actually, I'm relatively confident as I look ahead. You can see us going up in the polls. You can see Reform going down a bit in the polls. So actually, as I look at the future in the next year or two, I'm feeling reasonably good about that, actually.
Uncomfortable truth is that a Frankenstein coalition of the Lib Dems, the Greens and Labor would be just about the end for this country, at least in the way that we know it. And at the moment, there is a very real possibility of that happening because they are, in many ways, more strategic than the right. Any attempts to try and bring together the disparate factions on the right of politics must surely be a good thing.
Well, look, I completely defend uniting the right, and I want to see the right working together, because the alternative is what? More years under a Labour government. But this deal cannot be negotiated over social media. Rupert Lowe has got Nigel's number. He should pick up the phone and give him a ring. This is inappropriate to be discussed over social media in the first place. Secondly, I don't think Reform should have to accept those 5 conditions as the end all, because Restore Britain needs Reform UK. Reform UK does not need Restore Britain.
Well, some people would argue that they do need Restore Britain. At the moment, their polling numbers vary dramatically, but they outpolled the Conservatives, for example. Not outpolled, they received more votes than the Conservatives in the Manchester mayoralty election. Let's say they do pick up 5 to 10% of the vote, 5% of the vote perhaps in the next general election. That would really hurt Reform's chances of getting a majority government.
It would, but the thing is that Restore Britain doesn't have the same scale and infrastructure that Reform UK have in order to have that sort of attempt up and down the country, in my opinion, unfortunately. And at the moment, we do only see these 2 parties really in play at war in some councils, in local government. We need to really sort of focus here on local government at the moment, because where Reform will be judged in the next general election will be on their performance in councils and local government. And Restore Britain councillors in quite a few councils, such as Kent or Warwickshire, have gone out of their way to attack Reform administrations and have hindered them.
Look, there's been attacks on both sides from Reform supporters and from Restore supporters. In many ways, they have both actually shown a greater disdain for each other than they've shown for the Greens and Labor, which I've found incredibly dispiriting. But the other thing which I think we need to point out, of course, is there some politics with putting this out in the public domain in the way that Rupert Lowe has? Of course there is. They're politicians after all. But at the same time, on at least 4 of these, I would have thought you could actually get to agreement. Now, I don't think you'd get the cabinet veto which they are asking for. And I think this whole approach of saying, well, every single Conservative under that previous government should not be included in any future governments. I think you can basically separate out ones who are the good eggs from the bad eggs. But on the vast majority of what he said, you should be able to find some common ground, shouldn't you?
I do definitely agree with that. Reform and Restore Britain have a lot in common with their policies, but Restore Britain ran in Makerfield with the sole purpose of harming Nigel Farage, basically. So we need to really address that. And I think that's the only issue that they themselves can work out. In terms of Rupert putting this offer on social media publicly as well, he's obviously done it as a publicity stunt, fine, whatever. And it's getting everyone talking. It's getting us talking, it's getting councillors talking, it's getting everyone on Twitter talking. And that is what we need to focus on now, is how that will then perform coming forward. That behaviour change that I would expect to see from Restore councillors and any Restore members who are, high up in the hierarchy of Restore, you would expect that to all change going forward and for them to be a bit more friendly towards Reform. Reform are the larger vehicle and they are the way for Restore to get any sort of in with the next general election.
Time will tell. Jess, thanks for your time this morning.
A public referendum on the death penalty. A push toward national self-sufficiency in food, energy and defence. And the one that clearly cuts deepest, a demand that former Conservative ministers, who he blames for years of national decline, be kept entirely out of any future cabinet. Notice that last condition. It isn't abstract. It's a direct shot at people currently sitting inside Reform's own top team. Now, Farage didn't stay quiet. At his own press conference, he confirmed he had reached out to Lowe and said he had what he called an open mind about talking further, but stressed nothing had actually progressed. His comment was pointed. He said if you genuinely want to strike a political deal with someone, you pick up the phone privately. You don't publish a lengthy video about it. He also flatly rejected Lowe's demand to freeze out former Conservatives from any future government, naming senior colleagues by name and insisting he simply doesn't abandon people he considers allies just because someone else wants him to. And here's the part that should genuinely worry anyone hoping for a united right. Farage himself admitted, on the record, that this split could damage Reform's own chances at a general election. He pointed to results where Restore Britain pulled a meaningful slice of the vote away from Reform in contests that could otherwise have gone against Labour. Look at the recent Greater Manchester mayoral race. Reform took around a fifth of first preference votes. Restore Britain took close to a tenth. Labour would likely have won regardless in that particular contest, but the wider warning is obvious. Split the vote often enough, in enough marginal seats, and you hand the outcome to the very people you're trying to keep out. So where does that leave things tonight? Lowe says the door to cooperation is still open. Farage says his mind is open too, but he isn't changing who stands beside him. Meanwhile, every single day this argument plays out in public is another day the parties who actually benefit from a divided right get to sit back and watch. That's the pattern we track on this channel, night after night. Big personalities colliding, while the real question, who actually governs this country and how, gets buried underneath the noise. Whether it's a 3-word text message or a 5-point manifesto, the story underneath is always the same. Britain deserves a serious conversation, not a public slanging match. And if you think that's worth saying out loud, don't just nod and scroll on. Subscribe to Britain Underneath right now, because this is where you'll actually understand what's happening, instead of just watching the headlines fly past. Stay with us till the very end of videos like this one, because the sharpest detail always comes right before the close, and we don't like leaving things half-told. If tonight kept you properly informed, do the one thing that actually helps this channel grow. Hit subscribe, tap that bell, and stay switched on. Because whether it's a private message read out loud in public, or a feud playing out live between two men who are meant to be on the same side, we'll keep going underneath the story every single time. This will not be the last twist in this saga. Stay informed, stay sharp, and we'll see you in the next one. Britain Underneath, subscribed and switched on.